What is it like when your wife has a best friend who married into a rich family? It's that no matter what you do, she always thinks you're not good enough for her. I'm just a hard-working guy, but I was paired with a top-tier succubus, just because the system detected a 99% match between us. But what I didn't expect was that, while this top-tier succubus had a perfect figure and appearance, her temper was awful. The first time she saw me, she complained, saying, "I don't know if the matching system is malfunctioning. How could it pair me with someone like you, a poor loser?" And what was even harder for her to accept was that her best friend Maria, who had once been inferior to her in every way, had actually married the wealthy second-generation heir Makoto and was now living an incredibly luxurious life. So, after our marriage, she only agreed to let me touch her during the period of emotional awakening. The rest of the time, she couldn't stand being near me. Then, one day, I received a message from the matching center saying that my compatibility with Willow was only 30%, and they reassigned me a new succubus. I couldn't wait to share this good news with Willow. I said, "You were right. The matching system did mess up. Our marriage is officially over. Congratulations. Now you can go find your rich, handsome guy." Chapter 1. I helplessly said, "Can you stop biting my neck? I still have to work tomorrow." The tall and cold succubus, Willow, frowned, though her body was surprisingly hot. Hearing this, she seemed like she'd been greatly insulted, and replied in a sharp tone, "Do you think I want to bite you? Our compatibility is 99%. I can't control myself. It's all because of this damn compatibility." Willow complained while her waist twisted wildly. I felt a little exhausted but instinctively apologized. Sorry. Then go ahead and bite me." Willow huffed. She then left a kiss mark on my neck. Her beautiful heart-shaped tail swayed back and forth, showing that her mood was actually not bad at all. I breathed a sigh of relief. After another round of intense actions, I was completely worn out and collapsed into a deep sleep. I was so tired. It was more exhausting than staying up till midnight writing plans at work, but there was nothing I could do. After all, Willow was an S-rank top-tier succubus, and I was just an ordinary human. I had an ordinary appearance, an ordinary background, and we weren't compatible in the slightest. Apart from indulging her at times, I had nothing else to offer. Chapter 2. George, your stamina is really terrible. Every time, I haven't even had enough to eat, and you just fall asleep on your own. No matter how I shake you, you don't wake up. I scratched my head, instinctively apologizing. "Sorry, I'll try harder next time to last a little longer." Willow tilted her chin and said, "Fine, but remember to bring me a matcha cake when you come back." I nodded and then left the room. I matched with Willow 2 months ago. Generally, there are very few humans who can match with a succubus, especially someone as ordinary as me, but I was so lonely. So, I uploaded my profile, hoping to take a chance. I never expected that luck would hit me hard. When I looked at the profile sent from the matching center, it read, Willow, S-rank succubus, 170 centimeters, 34D, hourglass figure. Her looks and figure were simply exquisite, and our compatibility was an astonishing 99%. I had never seen such a beautiful woman. That afternoon, I couldn't even focus on work. I couldn't wait to head to the matching center to meet my succubus. But, as with all beautiful roses, there were thorns. The first time Willow saw me, I could see the disappointment in her eyes. Her tone was harsh, and with a look of disdain, she said, "I don't know if there's something wrong with the matching system. How could I end up matched with someone so ordinary like you?" I was a bit helpless. I forced a smile and asked, "Then, do you still want to go home with me?" To my surprise, the succubus got even angrier. She said, "Then what? You're just going to dump me right after we matched?" I was speechless. Even though Willow was very dissatisfied with me, we still got married and started living together. After marriage, except during the period of emotional awakening, when she'd stick close and hug me, the rest of the time, she almost tried to avoid me. But even just the affection during the period of emotional awakening was enough to wear me out. I didn't exercise much and had average stamina, but a succubus's needs were immense. So, I was always exhausted afterward. Although she didn't like me, I still truly felt the warmth of having someone by my side. I didn't want to live those lonely days by myself anymore. Chapter 3. After work, I didn't forget to bring Willow her favorite matcha cake. Willow had a taste like a child's. She was especially fond of sweet foods. She ate happily, and I couldn't help but feel a little cheerful too. When I saw a bit of cream on the corner of her mouth, I instinctively reached out to wipe it away. To my surprise, Willow immediately avoided my hand. She yelled, "Don't touch me casually." My hand froze in midair, and I couldn't help but feel hurt. I had forgotten that Willow's period of emotional awakening was already over. Apart from that period, she wouldn't get close to me. The warm atmosphere from just moments ago quickly turned cold. I forced a smile, trying to ease the tension. I said, "Sorry, I won't touch you like that again. You haven't gone out in a while, How about I take you out for a walk in a few days? Succubi are naturally social and don't like being cooped up at home. Unfortunately, my work was too busy, and I hardly had time to take her out. Willow snorted and said, "Don't treat me like some stray dog, just taking a walk in the park to brush me off." I replied, "I won't." I added, "How about we go hiking? We could camp and cook out." "You've probably never tried that. It's really fun." Willow's eyes lit up. Then she proudly flicked her tail. She said, "Fine, if you insist, only if you really want to." I nodded and said, "All right, I'll arrange it." Coincidentally, my childhood friend David was returning to the country in a week. He had called me a few days ago. "George, let's get together when I get back." All right. We hadn't seen each other for years. I naturally couldn't refuse and said, "Sure," he said. "Then let's go camping by car. I'll probably bring someone with me, but if you want to bring someone, you can." I thought for a moment and figured I could bring Willow. David wasn't unfamiliar with Willow's name. I had mentioned her to him before. He asked, "The S-rank succubus you matched with?" "Yeah." He laughed. "Looks like you two have adjusted pretty well." Hearing David's teasing tone, I couldn't help but smile bitterly. When I first brought Willow home, I was frustrated too. Why would a succubus with such high compatibility be so repelled by me? Am I really that bad? Sometimes, I couldn't hold it in and would complain to David. In truth, things weren't much better now. The only difference was that, during her period of emotional awakening, Willow was willing to be affectionate with me. Before, she would even hate it when I touched her. I vaguely replied, "It's all right, much better than at the beginning." David laughed and said, "Well, that's good. We'll see you then." Chapter 4. To prepare for the trip, I worked late for several nights in a row to finish my tasks. Willow wasn't happy when she saw me coming back so late every day. She said, "If you don't want to come back, then don't. Why did you marry me if you just want to leave me at home like some ornament?" I heard the tone of resentment in her voice. It sounded different from usual. I asked, Is your period of emotional awakening back?" I said, "Wait for me to take a shower first." Succubi have many needs. Although I was already very tired, I still had to try my best to satisfy her. Otherwise, Willow would throw a tantrum and probably break everything in the house. Willow straddled me, her lace skirt gently flowing, and her normally fair skin now tinted with a faint red. I couldn't help but raise my hand. But as soon as I touched her, she trembled slightly and bit her lip, whispering, "Be careful with your hands." She was burning with heat, and her eyes grew increasingly dazed, her seductive movements losing their rhythm. So, I grabbed her waist and took the initiative, until all my chaotic thoughts were swept away. Willow let out a soft hum and lay in my arms, saying, "Even though you're not much to look at, this doesn't feel so bad." The lingering warmth of the bedroom hadn't dissipated yet. Before I completely fell asleep, I felt Willow gently rest her tail on my waist, wrapping it around me. This was the succubus way of showing dependency on her partner. I felt a warmth in my heart and instinctively held her tighter. Willow mumbled softly, "You're so annoying," but she didn't push me away. Chapter 5. On the weekend, David came to pick me up. We met at the entrance of the neighborhood. He immediately came over and patted my shoulder. "George, long time no see. This is Lisa, a friend I met abroad." I looked in the direction David pointed. A slim, long-legged blonde with blue eyes stood beside him. Before I could react, she leaned in and pressed her cheek against mine. I was stunned. Willow immediately pulled me back, her beautiful eyes full of hostility. David laughed. "Don't misunderstand. It's a cheek-kissing greeting in their country." David put his arm around my shoulder and whispered, "George, you're quite the lucky guy. It's the first time I've seen her so affectionate with someone. Just making that little succubus jealous." I waved my hand. "She won't get jealous. She always thinks I'm too ordinary to deserve her." David frowned. "Too ordinary to deserve her? Has she been brainwashed by the idea of being above others?" I didn't continue the conversation and changed the subject. The four of us were in the car, chatting casually from time to time. Soon, we arrived at our destination. It was on top of a mountain, and we had to hike up a mountain path. My physical condition was poor, and I was quickly left behind. David teased, "George, are you even okay? You're way too weak." I was speechless. If I'm weak, half of it is because of work, the other half is because of Willow. I looked up, out of breath. This little succubus who drains my energy was full of vitality. She was walking so fast that I couldn't keep up. By the time we reached the summit, I was completely exhausted. After hurriedly setting up 2 tents, the others quickly crawled in to rest. I closed my eyes, almost drifting off to sleep, when Willow kissed me awake. Fearing she might act out in the wild, I grabbed her hand and said, "Let's wait until we're back. The soundproofing here is terrible." Willow stared at me for a few seconds. Then she huffed and said, "Whatever you want." Chapter 6. In the middle of the night, I woke up once. Instinctively, I reached out to the side, only to find it cold. Willow. It was late at night, and Willow had disappeared. What if something happened to her? I fully woke up, quickly threw on a coat, and crawled out of the tent. Willow. I was about to call her name when I saw Willow standing by the mountain edge, holding her phone. She was probably talking to someone. Under the moonlight, her profile appeared unusually cold. She said, "The one who matched with me, just an ordinary human." "Yeah, he's way below you." In the quiet night, the voice from the phone speaker was especially clear. A female voice said, "Didn't you always say the matching system must be malfunctioning? Have you never thought of submitting the test again? Honestly, he's not even worthy of you. Besides, if you really have no interest in matching, it's not impossible to force a cancellation." I didn't listen any longer. I turned around and went back into the tent. About 5 or 6 minutes later, Willow returned. She lifted the tent flap, bringing in a gust of cold wind. It chilled me to the bone. I could probably guess who Willow had been talking to. It was her best friend from the base, an B-level succubus, who had matched with the heir of the Ito group, Makoto, and now lived a life of luxury. It was only natural that Willow felt unbalanced, but I honestly thought she was starting to accept me. I thought she was willing to continue life with me, but I didn't expect her to still want to leave. It all felt like a foolish dream I had created. I sighed, closing my eyes to pretend to sleep. Willow, however, leaned in close and muttered, "You're so grown up, yet still kick the covers off. Aren't you afraid of catching a cold?" Her hot body pressed against mine, and she pulled the covers back over us. That's just how she was. Sometimes she was incredibly close to me. Other times, she couldn't stand me. In the dark, I slowly opened my eyes. If she really wanted me to let go, I felt reluctant. Chapter 7. The process of forcibly canceling the match is very complicated. Even if submitted to the matching center, it has to go through a rematching process and multiple layers of review. It can be said that it's extremely troublesome, but Willow doesn't like me, so she probably won't mind the hassle. My thoughts were all over the place that night. The next day, I walked out of the tent, my dark circles under my eyes, feeling completely drained. David looked at me in shock and said, "George, young people need to learn some self-control, don't you think? You look like your little succubus sucked all the energy out of you." I was speechless and replied, "What are you talking about? I just drank too much coffee and didn't sleep well." David sneered, "You better be telling the truth." Lisa was preparing food not far away, and the delicious smell wafted through the air, making my stomach growl. Maybe my hungry expression was too obvious. Lisa's dark green eyes curved into a smile as she said, "Do you want to try some?" The stir-fried pork was tender and juicy. I took a bite and gave a thumbs up. "You're really good at cooking." She smiled and said, "I lived in your country for a while, and the cooking skills were taught to me by my neighbor's grandmother." I said, "No wonder. Your language is also very fluent." "I'm going to settle here in the future," Lisa said, lowering her gaze. "But here, I only know David." I'm not sure if it was just my imagination, but her voice sounded somewhat pitiful. She said, "Can we exchange contact info? I think you're a good person, and I'd like to be friends." I didn't refuse. After all, I didn't have many friends in this city. Lisa was lively and outgoing, and it would definitely be fun to be friends with her. We chatted as we ate, and before I knew it, the unpleasant thoughts in my mind were pushed aside. "George, here," Lisa said. "You've got something on your mouth." Before I could react, Lisa suddenly raised her hand and wiped my mouth. I froze for a moment, and out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Willow walking toward us. At that moment, an absurd thought suddenly crossed my mind. Was she jealous and coming over to scold me? But she just stared blankly at us for a couple of seconds. Then she turned and walked away. Sigh. What was I thinking? Willow doesn't like me. How could she possibly be jealous? And if she really cared, she wouldn't have made that phone call last night. Chapter 8. Why aren't there any cookies today? I looked up to find Willow frowning and glaring at me in displeasure. I avoided her gaze. Ever since we came back from the trip, I unconsciously tried to avoid her. I replied, "Didn't you say the ones I made were awful?" Willow loves sweets. So I learned some cookie-making skills. Every Wednesday, I would bake something sweet for Willow, but I probably have no talent for cooking. Every time, the results were met with her extreme pickiness. So I kept trying to improve the recipe, hoping to please Willow, but now I realize. It wasn't that my cookies tasted bad, it was that she just didn't like me in the first place. I wasn't interested in doing these pointless things anymore. After I submit the request to cancel the match, Willow will probably be rematched with some wealthy heir, and then she'll be able to eat whatever she wants. I shrugged and said, "You didn't like them, so I won't make them anymore. Anyway, it'd be a waste to make them." Willow hissed like a cat with its tail stepped on and snapped. "Fine, I won't make them." It was already disgusting. Why can't I say anything? I quickly apologized. "Yeah, they're bad. Sorry." Willow stormed off. slamming the door. That evening, after finishing work, I returned to the bedroom. When I lay down on the bed, I noticed Willow hadn't gone to sleep yet. Her soft tail curled around mine. It was an invitation for intimacy, but I knew Willow's period of emotional awakening hadn't arrived yet. So I turned her down. I said, "I'm really tired. I have a lot of work tomorrow." Willow was quiet for a few seconds. She silently retracted her tail, just as I was drifting off to sleep. Her cold voice suddenly sounded. She said, "You found someone else outside and now you're going to ditch me." I didn't quite catch it and instinctively replied, "What?" The next moment, the sharp pain on my neck made me fully awake. "What are you doing?" She bit her lip and said, "George, I probably never told you why my parents divorced, did I?" I furrowed my brow, not understanding why she suddenly brought this up. She said, "My mom is a succubus, my dad is human, and their matching compatibility was really high, but my dad still ended up cheating. A succubus only has one mate in her life, but human infidelity seems to be ingrained in their very nature. So, I hate humans." In the dark, her eyes gleamed with clear disgust. She said, "And I hate you." I was silent for a moment before saying, "I know. Willow hated me. I've always known that. Maybe I should have let go a long time ago." Chapter 9. After submitting the report to cancel the match, the next day, I received an acknowledgement receipt. The staff member called me, saying, "Mr. George, are you sure you want to cancel your bond with your succubus? It's very rare for a human to have such a high compatibility with an S-level succubus." I replied, "We've been together for several months, but the succubus still doesn't really like me." I sighed and said, "I want to respect her wishes and set her free." "Understood. We will proceed accordingly." After hanging up the phone, I returned to my work. I thought the process of canceling the match would take a long time, but unexpectedly, that afternoon, I received a message from the matching center. It said, "Mr. George, we apologize. After reevaluating, we've confirmed that the actual compatibility between you and Willow is only 30%. A portion of the previous data was incorrect and has now been deleted. We have automatically dissolved your marriage. To express our apologies, the matching center will match you with a new succubus free of charge. Thank you for your understanding." When I received these messages, my mind buzzed. Then, a sharp pang of bitterness surged inside me. Perhaps we really weren't meant to be. Even fate couldn't stand it, but I quickly let go of it. So, our compatibility with each other had been mistaken all along. No wonder she never liked me, I thought. How could an S-level succubus ever be matched with someone as ordinary as me? Now, our marriage had been dissolved directly. It happened much faster than I expected. Willow wouldn't have to keep forcing herself to stay under the same roof with me anymore. That was definitely great news for her. After all, she had always envied her best friend's situation. I got home, and Willow was snuggled up on the sofa watching a show. When she saw I was carrying a lot of things, she raised an eyebrow and asked, "Is today some special occasion? Why did you buy so much food?" I nodded and said, "Yes, there's actually good news." She asked, "What's the news?" I said, "You were right. The matching system really did have a problem. The matching center messaged me this afternoon. Our compatibility is actually only 30%. I took a deep breath and smiled at her. "Our marriage has been dissolved. Congratulations. You're free." Chapter 10. Willow's phone hit the floor with a loud snap. She stood up, her eyes wide, and said, "What did you just say? How is this possible?" She looked genuinely shocked. I asked in confusion, "Why is it impossible? Haven't you always disliked me?" I sighed and said, "If our compatibility was really high, you wouldn't hate me so much, would you?" Willow opened her mouth to speak, but then paused. It seemed like she wanted to say something more. I said, "You'll probably be rematched with someone more suitable for you, maybe even marry into a rich family." After hearing this, a look of sarcasm crossed Willow's face. She asked, "So, are you happy?" I didn't understand what she meant, but I still replied, "I'm okay with it." "Aren't you happy?" She said, "Of course I'm happy." Willow spoke slowly, each word sharp with bitterness, and she said, "I'm going to pack my things and leave. Don't worry, I'm not the clingy type. I'm not a pathetic, needy succubus who won't let go. And once we're divorced, I can be matched with a super better human. I'm so happy." I nodded and said, "I hope all your wishes come true." I asked, "So, are you going to eat before you leave?" She replied, "Eat? What for? Didn't you say our marriage has been dissolved? It's so inappropriate for a stranger like me to stay in your house." I thought about it for a moment and realized she had a point. She hated me so much, she probably couldn't wait to leave. Willow added, "But if you truly beg me," I interrupted her. "Then go ahead and leave." Willow stormed out, without even taking a single piece of luggage. Chapter 11. A week after Willow left, I received a message from the matching center informing me that my new succubus match had been completed. She was an A-level succubus with a compatibility of 80%. The photo looked very lively, with a little fang showing when she smiled, giving her a playful look. Though she was different from Willow's cold, stunning type, she was still very beautiful. When I arrived at the matching center after work, I saw the familiar figure from the photo, yelling at the staff and throwing a tantrum. She complained, "What the hell? What year is it? And we're still doing arranged marriages. 80% compatibility. So what? I don't want it. I, Freya, would rather jump off this building and smash myself into a pile of mud than marry some human I've never even met." I was speechless. Looks like she wasn't going to be easy to deal with either. I rubbed my forehead. If she truly didn't want to, then whatever. I walked over from behind and patted her shoulder. I said, "Hi, I'm George." Freya turned around with an annoyed look. The moment she saw my face, her pupils shimmered with a peach-pink glow. The next second, the chair screeched as she pushed it away. She stood up, her cheeks flushed, and in a high-pitched voice, she said, "Ah, so the handsome guy is the human who matched with me. My name's Freya, A-level succubus. I can cook, do housework, and keep the bed warm." She added, "By the way, handsome, when are we getting married? You know, I don't want to be a homeless, pitiful succubus anymore." I looked at her, completely confused. Does this succubus have a split personality? It wasn't mentioned in her profile. Chapter 12. I thought about it for a while and figured that maybe the high compatibility was the reason. It could have given the succubus a sort of love at first sight illusion. I awkwardly said, "Sorry, I came here in a rush, so I didn't bring anything. Do you like cookies? Next time we meet, I can bring you a box of cookies I baked myself." I thought to myself, maybe if she eats the cookies I make, she'll regret what she said today. But Freya's tail started wagging like crazy. She said, "Cookies, I love them." Her heart-shaped tail tip kept brushing against my side, and she said, "Then you have to come quickly. I'm so lonely, so lonely." I was speechless. I said, "Okay, I'll see you then." But my cookie-making skills were really terrible. After burning the third batch of cookies, I finally picked out a dozen or so that were edible. I packed them into a box and got ready to head to the matching center. When I pulled them out of the bag, I felt a bit guilty. But when Freya opened the box, she sniffed it like a little dog and said, "It smells so good, a little burnt. Is it caramel flavor?" I was speechless. I said, "No, it's just the plain flavor. Delicious. Really delicious." Freya's reaction to the cookies was completely different from Willow's. I remembered that Willow had been brutally honest when she commented, "This stuff is so bad even a dog wouldn't look at it." Sure enough, desserts are best made for people who can provide emotional value. "Is this your new succubus?" A cold voice suddenly came from behind me. Uh-oh. Just when I was thinking about her, she shows up. I turned around and saw Willow, who I hadn't seen in weeks, standing not far away, her face twisted in a mocking expression. She said, "So ugly, but it fits you, of course. Other than me, how could you ever match with an S-level succubus?" Freya tilted her head and said, "Hey, X, have you ever heard that insecurity and sensitivity can make a person unexpectedly aggressive?" Willow scoffed in disbelief. "Insecure? Compared to you, what's wrong with me?" Freya snorted and said, "Maybe it's because you don't have a husband who bakes cookies for you." Just a moment ago, Willow had been full of mockery, but when she saw the cookies in Freya's hands, her expression immediately vanished. Her eyes gradually filled with anger and resentment. She screamed hysterically, "Cookies? You made my cookies for this slut to eat." Chapter 13. What do you mean, your cookies? These are my cookies. Freya immediately grabbed my arm and said, "This is my husband, the one with 80% compatibility with me." Watching the two succubus clash over a box of truly awful cookies, I felt a wave of embarrassment rise inside me. I tried to calm Freya, "Don't argue with her," but the next second, Willow suddenly rushed over and slapped Freya across the face. The scene immediately became chaotic. I was trying to stop one, but the other one wouldn't budge, pulling hair and struggling. It wasn't until the staff rushed over and separated them that things finally calmed down. The staff, panting, reminded me, succubus creatures are clingy and possessive. Even if you've separated, they may not adjust easily at first. Mr. George, you'll need to manage your relationship with them carefully. I looked at the two succubus, both of them sporting visible bruises. I felt a headache coming on. I said, "All right, I'll handle it. Sorry for the trouble." I took the two troublemakers home. Luckily, there was still a first aid kit at home. Just as I was about to tend to the more seriously hurt Freya, Willow's cold voice suddenly rang out. "Of course, with a new succubus, everything gets used on her first." Freya widened her eyes and said, "Do you want to see how hard you hit? If it weren't for George, I could sue you." "Sue me?" Willow chuckled and said, "Go ahead, sue me. Don't act all innocent. You couldn't stand me being prettier than you." So you deliberately slapped me. How disgusting. I was speechless. I felt my headache worsening. I said, both of you, if you keep arguing, you can both leave my house. The two glaring succubus on the sofa immediately fell silent. The air became quiet. Phew, much better. Chapter 14. Originally, I planned to send Willow and Freya back to the base, but by the time I finished handling everything, it was already very late. So, I had no choice but to let them stay the night at my place. In the middle of the night, I was groggily asleep. Suddenly, I felt a tail wrap around my leg. It was cold. I immediately woke up. I met Willow's eyes, which were even colder than usual. She was holding a thin piece of paper. It was the receipt from the matching center that I had received when I submitted the request to cancel the bond. How did she find this? As expected, Willow immediately started accusing me. She said, "So, George, you've actually wanted to get rid of me all along, right?" I swallowed nervously and said, "No, let me explain. Can you go down first?" "No." Willow's eyes reddened. "I'm really upset right now," I said. "We've already ended things. I can't comfort you anymore." "Is that so?" Willow bit her lip and said, "George, you've already had me, and now you just want to walk away. You're dreaming." Willow clung to me tightly, her little fang biting down on my shoulder. A period of emotional awakening succubus is surprisingly strong, and I couldn't break free right away. I tried to reason with her, saying, "You'll have a new match." Willow got even angrier, shouting, "I'm not like you, so easily accepting a new match. It's only been a few days. George, are you that impatient? So, how long are you going to play with this new little succubus before you get bored? You won't get tired of her any faster than me, will you?" Willow's tone made it sound like I had done something wrong, as if it wasn't her who had said she wanted to end things over the phone that night, as if it wasn't her who had said she hated me. A surge of anger rose inside me. I locked her wrist and said, "Willow, my compatibility with her is 80%. And didn't you say you hated me? What are you making such a fuss about now?" Willow shouted. "Stop slandering me," probably because the noise inside the room had gotten too loud. Freya must have woken up at some point, not seeing Willow in the living room. She must have guessed what was going on and came over to knock on the bedroom door. "George, are you two together?" I froze in shock, quickly covering Willow's mouth. When the noise outside finally stopped, she said, "I've locked the door. Are you going to open the door for her?" Willow blinked and said, "If you still have the strength to do so." Chapter 15. Willow tied her hair up and said, "Your new succubus won't mind, right?" She said, "Sorry, I didn't mean to bite that hard." Period of emotional awakening. Couldn't help it. She said sorry, but her tone showed absolutely no remorse. She rolled her eyes and said, "Anyway, you've already played with me like this. If you don't take responsibility, I'll swing on your ceiling beam with my neck." I was speechless. I looked down at the marks all over my body. Who the hell is playing who here? My body ached all over, and I didn't even have the energy to complain. As soon as the bedroom door opened, Freya, who had been waiting by the door all night, immediately rushed in with claws out. Without a word, she precisely locked onto Willow. She slapped her right across the face. Her wounds from yesterday hadn't even healed. The two succubus started fighting again. They tumbled from the bed to the floor, constantly cursing at each other. Freya yelled, "You cheap succubus, divorced and still coming after George, only playing these petty tricks. Do you have any shame?" Willow retorted, "George was my husband to begin with. If it weren't for that damn matching center, we'd never have gotten divorced. You dare talk about being the mistress. Now you're the mistress, you slut. I'll slap you to death." What's the difference between having two noisy pets at home? It took me a while to separate them. Both succubus had their tails raised, still glaring at each other in hostility. I sighed and said, "Willow, can we talk?" Chapter 16. What do you want to talk about? Willow said arrogantly, lifting her chin. "If it's about remarrying, then I agree. But you have to get rid of that succubus first." I shook my head and said, "Willow, please leave." Willow opened her mouth but didn't speak right away. After a few seconds, her eyes slowly reddened. She said, "You're kicking me out for her. You really don't want me anymore." I took a moment to choose my words and finally spoke. "Actually, you might feel dependent on me right now because every time you've had a period of emotional awakening, I've been the one comforting you. So, it's hard for you to break that dependency." The staff mentioned before that recently separated succubus often go through an adjustment period, feeling clingy and possessive. "If you're really uncomfortable, I can take you to see a doctor." Willow's tears fell onto my hand, burning hot, but her expression remained defiant. She said, "You talk so nobly, but isn't it because you have a new succubus, so you don't want me anymore? It's not the first time. Anyway, I barely convinced myself not to care about you finding another succubus. How did I become like this? Why have I become so pathetic? You horrible human, do you know you ruined me?" When she said that, it finally clicked in my mind. Actually, after we returned from the trip, both I and Willow had become strange. One night, when we were sleeping, she even bit me. So, back then, she must have misunderstood me and Lisa. She was jealous. But this realization came too late and didn't seem that important anymore. I didn't bother explaining. I said, yes, our compatibility was so low. We shouldn't have been together in the first place. And I heard everything when you called me that day. Didn't you also want to cancel the bond? You thought I wasn't good enough for you. And now everything is just as you wanted. Willow loudly retorted. I didn't. My best friend tried to meddle with our relationship. And I yelled at her right away. You, eavesdropping on me, can't even hear everything. I was speechless. She's the one being all defensive. And now she's blaming me. I frowned and said, but after being with me, haven't you always thought I wasn't good enough for you? You hated me, never wanted to get close to me, and only allowed intimacy during period of emotional awakenings. Was I mistaken about you too? Willow sniffled a couple of times. She said, I'm sorry. When the match results came out, I was mocked for days by the succubus at the base, all of them laughing at me for matching with an ordinary human. So I was holding on to that anger, feeling humiliated, and that's why I kept trying to upset you. But, actually, you're really good. You're not ordinary at all. You're wonderful. And you're so kind to me. Your personality is great. The cookies you baked are really good too. Everything about you is great. I like you. I don't want to divorce you at all. But my personality is too bad. That's why I've been so unreasonable. I won't do that again. Can you give me another chance? Chapter 17. I didn't answer. My feelings for her were real. She might like me too, but she often belittled me, calling me useless, always saying I wasn't good enough for her, even if it was in anger. The harm she caused me was real. She made me doubt myself, made me feel insecure. If I forgave her so easily, it wouldn't be magnanimous. It would be admitting that my boundaries could be trampled on. Why do I like someone who refuses to speak kindly to me? She was always like this. She would prepare a bath for me when I came home from work. She'd tell me she learned some massage techniques online and then give me a massage. She would secretly try to cook, only to burn herself and get blisters. She'd take care of me when I was sick, but when I woke up, she'd complain about how troublesome I was. The porridge she made was awful, all burnt. Although, to be honest, my own porridge wasn't much better. But with no one in the house who could cook, how could we survive? Willow. I didn't know when Freya had arrived at the bedroom door. Her face, for once, was serious. She said, but I'm not like that. The first time I met George, I really liked him. No matter what others say, I won't change. So you don't deserve his forgiveness. Willow's eyes reddened again. She bit her lip, stood up, and said, I understand. After that, she left. It was as if she disappeared completely. Until a week later, on a stormy night, Willow knocked on my door. She was cold, pale, and fragile. In just a few days, it seemed like she had become a different person. She weakly said, George, can we go submit a new data matching test? This time it won't just be 30%. I promise you. My expression changed completely. I asked, what did you do? She said, there's a drug in the black market that can boost compatibility. I went and bought it. I cursed. Willow, are you crazy? Chapter 18. I'm sorry. Willow trembled as she spoke, her lips quivering. She said, if I can't cook well, I'll learn. If my personality isn't good, I'll change. If you won't forgive me, I'll make up for it. But if the compatibility isn't high, I really can't help it. I never thought Willow would go this far. Such a proud person. I frowned and said, I don't need you to do this. You'll die. Do you understand? We need to go to the hospital. She choked. But what should I do? Without a high compatibility, you won't like me. I really wanted to shake some sense into her. But her condition wasn't good. I sighed and said, I don't like someone because of their compatibility. The first time I met you, I liked you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have married you. Willow's eyes slowly lit up. I continued. My reason for separating from you is that your actions later on really hurt me. Love isn't something that's only measured by compatibility. I turned my head and saw Freya's eyes filled with resentment. I cleared my throat and said, well, I guess we can't completely disregard it. I thought to myself, but honestly, whether it's 5%, 30%, or 100%, it didn't really make a difference to me. Chapter 19. After Willow caused a scene at the hospital, she came back out again. After a brief period of weakness, she bounced back to her usual energetic self. She had plenty of time to argue with Freya and be jealous again. This made the house restless. A few days ago, while chatting with David on the phone, I was venting about this whole situation. David laughed at me for 10 minutes straight. Then, he finally said slowly, well, actually, it's not that big of a deal. Don't you think your two succubus are like a proud little cat and a simple little dog? On the surface, cats and dogs don't seem to get along, but they can balance each other out. In general, Whoever is more obedient. You just treat them better. Ah, George, congratulations. You're living the dream with both a cat and a dog. I was speechless and hung up the phone. Sure enough, that night, the two of them had another big argument. I opened my phone, planning to look up some succubus care tips, but then I got a message from Lisa. She invited me out for dinner. She's in charge of coordinating with our company now, so it was probably about contract stuff. I agreed to meet. When I arrived, I sat down and hadn't even had time to take out the documents. When Lisa looked at me with burning eyes and said, "George, I like you," I was speechless. Chapter 20. I said, "No, you know, I already have a succubus partner." She asked, "But didn't you two get divorced?" I said, "I just found someone recently." She replied, "All right, I can wait until you get divorced again." The atmosphere became a bit awkward, so I stood up and said I needed to use the restroom. As soon as I opened the booth door, the two succubus suddenly tumbled right in front of me. I was shocked. "You're following me?" Willow looked at me with a gaze full of resentment. She said, "Isn't two succubus enough for you? Are you collecting them?" I rubbed my forehead and said, "Can we talk about this at home?" I returned to the booth, formally rejected Lisa, and then brought these two troublemakers back home. On the way back, Willow and Freya couldn't stop complaining. The two succubus, faced with a rival, surprisingly found common ground. They started singing in unison. "Dyed her hair blonde. Who's she trying to seduce?" Freya replied, "She's a foreigner." Willow snorted and said, "I don't care. She even helped George wipe his mouth in front of me." It made me want to slap her face with a whole plate. "Then why didn't you?" Willow replied, "I'm the main wife. I have to have some dignity." I was speechless again. Chapter 21. Willow and Freya behaved for only a couple of days. On a calm morning, they started fighting again because the two eggs I gave them were different sizes. Freya said, "I could have had George all to myself. Our compatibility is 80%. What about you? You're nothing. It's all your fault. You little third-party succubus, acting like a prostitute." Willow retorted, "The one who isn't loved is the third party. You know. George, tell me, who do you love the most?" I was speechless. "My suggestion is that from now on, we just eat quail eggs. Then they'll behave. When I face a question I can't answer, can I just not answer?"